the table.
I'd like to bring this special town council meeting to May 10th to order, and would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Father.
Councillor Albert?
Here.
Councillor Kobe?
Here.
Councillor Ward?
Here.
Councillor McTevier?
Here.
Councillor Bickford?
Here.
Councillor Cross is absent. Councillor Brunel?
Here. Next item will be the
The public hearings?
public hearing. I'd
The-
like to open the public hearing. You open it before we, let the green do it?
Sure, if you'd like, you can
Okay.
open the public hearing for the 2016-17 school budget.
Mr. Green, you can go.
Good evening. I put together a slide presentation to real quickly go over some key points to this year's budget. I've been in contact with the finance director for the town. They're in the process of trying to determine what the mill rate will be and what the impact will be of this budget. So I do not have those numbers tonight, but I know they're working on them and they're pretty close to having those figured out. This evening I'm going to share a couple of things, but so there's going to be quite a few numbers, but I wanted to point out in the packets that we have for the school budget. On the back of the subsidy comparison sheet, you'll notice there are a number of terms that I'll probably be referencing tonight. You can actually match those terms up to the actual subsidy comparison report, but actually you can also match those up into the presentation as we move along. The proposed budget that was adopted by the school committee last night is based on the preliminary ED 279 figures. And what the ED 279 is, that is the financial document that we get from the state. It tells us what our subsidy is going to be. Some of you may know that they raised they added $15 million into the general purpose aid, which benefits schools. This includes those additional funds. The recommendation in the proposed budget includes an overall budget decrease of 0.002% or $31,856. The total budget, including adult education, is $15,325,540. The total local funding, which is the amount that you're actually raised, and I'll go over this in a second, but that's the actual amount that you're taxed on locally, is $5,994,083, which is an increase of $482,058 locally. And so when I presented this before, people have asked, how can your overall expenditures or your total budget go down by $31,000? We're hearing all these rumors about cuts, and yet our taxes are going to go up $482,000. And I'm going to do my best this evening to explain that. And again, that would be $482,058 increase in the local taxes, and we're still waiting to get the numbers to find out what that would be in regard to how much 1 mil would be and how much this would actually increase your overall taxes. Now, there are a number of budget components that I'll be talking about tonight. I'll be going over what the total budget is, the contributing factors to why we have to ask for additional funds to pay for the services, even after all the cuts that we've already made. I'm going to outline the budget reductions, the ones that were proposed to the school committee, talk a little bit about the state contribution, what the total local funding is, or your share, which I've touched on already, show you a budget history graph, talk about the bond proceeds. There are some bond proceeds still remaining that we do have incorporated into this budget. And the Capital Reserve Fund, we do have some funds, some money from the Capital Reserve Fund added into this budget. The undesignated amount, talk about that. That's actually the money that's left over at the end of the school year when they, on June 30th, money that's left over and any unanticipated revenue or income that comes in after the fact that you didn't have budgeted, that's added into an unassigned, undesignated amount. We call them differently. The new auditors call it an unassigned account, and I'll talk a little bit about that. There are some variables remaining. However, it's unlikely. Usually at this time of year, sometimes we're waiting for insurance numbers and stuff. A lot of those numbers have come in, so the numbers that I'll be presenting this evening are probably close to being as accurate as they will be by the time we go to June referendum. And then I also wanted to provide the community with the NEASC report because we're quite proud of the letter that we received in April, and I wanted to share the accomplishment for the Lisbon High School publicly again. So that's an overview of the different components, and I'll go through these. So the total budget, a lot of times people will say the school budget is $15 million, which is true. However, what you're taxed on is actually the local contribution. The state contribution is the amount of money that we receive in state aid, and this year that amount is $8,647,457, which is a 4.5% decrease, or $410,616. That's one of the factors in why we have to ask for the amount of money that we're asking for in this year's budget. So the local contribution, again, is $5,916,728, which is actually an 8.7% increase on last year's budget, which is at $482,058 again locally. So the total budget is $15,325,540, and that includes adult education as well. So the contributing factors, there are some major contributing factors to this budget, and I've listed those on this page here. The proposed budget, in order to offset this, and we did this last year, is we utilized the capital reserve fund, which I'll talk about. We used funds from that, and we used the remaining bond proceeds to offset last year's budget. Those were considered revenue. One of the other issues, I've already talked about the state subsidy decrease, but one of the things that's included in this budget that has yet to be raised locally in taxes is the debt service on the gym and the track, which combined, the gym alone this year is $429,224, and the track is $58,100. So those are two major factors in why we have to ask for the amount of money we have, or that we're asking for. You add those and the state subsidy alone, not counting the $600,000 that we had to cut the mandate from last year, those are some pretty significant factors in our budget. When we started this budget, when we kept everything as is, the first time we presented to the school committee, the amount was was close to $1.6 million increase locally. Other things that are factors are salaries and benefits. 73% of our budget is salaries and benefits, which are all negotiated and are pretty much, there's not a whole lot you can do with those in those areas. Maine State Retirement, I've been talking about this for several years. That has been pushed onto the schools, or onto the local property taxes. I think that amount this year was close to $70,000. It was right around $70,000. Our salaries and benefits are roughly around $220,000 a year increase. And Maine State Retirement, that keeps being increased, and that's close to, like I said, $70,000. We lost $241,789 in revenue. That came from, when we did the guaranteed performance contract, we received over close to $80,000 in rebates. We actually received additional subsidy from the state, and we used the bond proceeds and the capital reserve to help offset. And this year, we just don't have that revenue currently in our budget. As far as reductions go, we have already notified several staff that they would not be issued a contract for next year. We have K through 8 positions, or at least a couple of positions that we have notified staff that they would not be coming back. Gifted and Talented is a program. We've notified staff they would be shifted. Just so everyone here is aware, there is a very strict or very clear reduction in force language in the contract. So if a teacher is certified or certifiable in different areas and they have experience in Lisbon, it goes on to seniority. So just because Gifted and Talented has been looked at, that doesn't necessarily mean that any of these teachers are going to be directly impacted outside of having to teach in a different content area or in a different building. Technology was a cut. Administrative secretary was a reduction. In athletics and co-curricular, we did have a list. There is a list of proposed cuts, or the actual cuts now that are online. And there's an amount. It's roughly around, it's not quite 15,000, but it's about 14,600, I believe. That was actually, that's not from any of those positions. That's actually from the positions that weren't filled, that haven't been filled, that we have money budgeted for in a stipend. So we just reduced that amount. There was some confusion about that, and I apologize. But what we did is we listed all of the programs, teams, if there was varsity and JV, any team that had less than 22 students, any club that had less than 10, and any team or whatever that had less than 15. So we had a list, but the 14,000, the money that comes out of those cuts are based on the amount of money that we receive from the stipends from the positions that haven't been filled for quite a few years. The volunteer coordinator, we've done some restructuring. I'll talk a little bit more about, I've been talking a lot about restructuring. That has been, we've looked at adult education. We've reduced adult education, their time to 4/5 adult education and 1/5. They're working with doing the volunteer coordinator work. So we restructured that, and there were some savings there. There is an art position. There is a PE health position. The lead position, which is, we pay a portion of that, I think half of that, to the police department. There is an SRO officer. There is a maintenance position. And there's at least one bus van driver that are all reductions that we proposed. The majority of these, I would say probably over half of these positions, the reason why it's been really quiet as we've been presenting, but it's because a lot of these positions are, the majority of them are being opened or not filled, but it's because people have retired or have left the system. And so a lot of people don't understand the impact because they don't see it right now. It'll be really next year is when you see these, when you see the impact that these cuts would have. The SRO officer has somebody attached to it. The lead program has somebody attached to it. Art, PE, technology, and gifted and talented in the K through 8. So there's a number of them that do have people attached to them. So to define the state contribution, and this is pretty difficult because the state uses a combination of funded formulas. The primary formula is the essential programs and services. And in that, there's a list. What they do is they have an estimate of what the minimal services are for any school system. And it's across the board for all schools in the state. And in that, they look at the number of teachers, guidance, librarians, health, ed tech, library techs, clerical, and school administration. And then they determine, based on your enrollments, how many of those positions that you actually, that this formula believes that you need. And for an example, we are under EPS in the majority of those numbers in areas, with the exception of nurses. And we have 3 nurses, and I believe they say with a school system our size, you need 1.6 or 1.7. So they calculate the formula, and then they determine what your essential programs and services figure is, which is around 13 million or so. And what we end up being is then they take whatever we're over, and that is something that has to be raised locally. So whatever you're above EPS, you have to raise locally. And currently, we're $779,992 above EPS. There's also a transition amount, and the transition amount is the difference in funding that the state doesn't, by law, doesn't doesn't pay for the entire cost of education. So it's not just the cost here, and there's been some confusion on that. It's not the cost of the education in Lisbon, because we actually receive over 60%, close to 70% funding from the state. However, there is a law in the books that says that the state's going to pay for 55% of the total cost of education K through 12 in the state, and they're nowhere near that. So as a result, locally, every school department has to raise their transition amount, and in this case, for Lisbon, it is $281,317. You add those two together, and we're over EPS by over $1 million, which I think I averaged is close to 6 or 7%. The total local funding, again, is the amount that I've talked about before. It's the $5 million amount, which is the increase of over $480,000. I wanted to show you the budget history. This is a 10-year budget history graph that includes the total budget cost, the local contribution, and also the state revenue. And you'll notice the top line is the total budget, and we have progressively climbed, except for the last 2 years. Well, this year we actually decreased the amount of state revenue, which is in the middle. We were on we were increasing over that over the last couple of years. However, we've had a number of smaller classes graduate. This funded formula is based. The numbers are 2 years old. So after this year's seniors graduate, they have a pretty small class. Most of our classes are going to jump up to about 100. Close to 100 kids per class. So our revenues and subsidies should increase over the next couple of years. The issue is that this year it showed a decrease of around 20 students. And when you factor in 8,000 plus per student, that will equate why our state subsidy decreased by so much. And then on this case, you'll see an increase in the local contribution, which again, it's hard to explain. Well, I'm hoping I'm doing a good job of explaining it, but when your budget stays the same or decreases, and then the local contribution goes up, both the valuation, the state mill rate, there's a lot of factors that go into this, but that's just a graph of where we are and where we've been over the last several years. The bond proceeds in June of 2015, as you know, the residents of Lisbon Falls approved in referendum the construction of a new gymnasium and a track. Both of these projects, as a result of the hard work of all the staff, doing a lot of the work ourselves, and really because we are under such close scrutiny, both of those projects came in under budget, and so there's funds left over for both projects. This year, though, we used a pretty large amount of it last year to help offset the budget as revenue. This year, we anticipate there's going to be around $80,967 remaining in both of those projects, and so we have included that in this budget. Next year, those funds will be gone, and so just a reminder that anything you use as revenue, if you don't replace it or don't have the revenue the following year, you have to raise it locally. So we will not have the $81,000 or so dollars in our budget available for revenue next year. The Capital Reserve Fund was established in 2012, and this fund was intended for the maintenance of plant and minor remodeling. As of today, we have $60,000, $60,746 remaining in that fund. And what we've done is we've utilized $20,081 of the Capital Reserve Fund for the performance contract, the guaranteed performance contract. And so we felt, and we did it last year, we felt that the use of the capital reserve to offset that type of to offset the maintenance and pay for that contract was a good use of those funds, because at some point, again, if you don't have the revenue and you don't have the revenue the following year, then you have to raise it locally. And so we have enough money in there to do the $20,000 for the capital reserve fund to pay for the guaranteed performance contract, or a portion of the guaranteed performance contract. The undesignated amount is the amount, again, that's left over at the end of the school year Any revenue that comes in after the fact, we put that into the undesignated amount. For years, we've used the standard of around $118,000 to build our budgets. However, last year when we received additional state subsidy, we increased that amount to $194,270. And this year we have built the budget on the intent that we would have at least $194,270 left over in this budget. Again, so that's the undesignated amount. There have been, historically, if you look at the use of that fund, there have been amounts anywhere from $118,000, I think all the way up to $600,000, maybe $700,000, which the community, when I first became superintendent 7 years ago, people would ask, if you have $500,000 left over at the end of the year, you probably didn't need that $500,000, so why do you keep asking for it? So we have always tried to bring that amount down to as close to $100,000 as we can. It seems like a lot of money, but $100,000 in a budget with this many employees, it doesn't take a whole lot to, that was about as close as I could get without making my former business manager go over the edge. So even $194,000 seems like quite a lot, but again, a lot of things can happen, and when you close out the books, if things aren't invoiced correctly or they didn't get invoiced on time, it doesn't take a long time for that money to disappear. So we've been trying to keep it as low as possible. I mentioned at the beginning there are a number of variables that are still out there. However, I don't believe a lot of these are going to come into play. The bond proceeds, that would be the end. We believe that the amount that we have budgeted is the last remaining amount. The capital reserve, you could use additional capital reserve, but we have not put any money into the capital reserve in the last couple of years. And so you want to be real careful with that, because we do use that for other projects. We use that for the sidewalk, going from the middle school to 196. We've used it for the wireless networks in the buildings. So it really has other uses that we're going to anticipate having to use over the next several years. The anticipated actual resignations, you never know. We have a lot of administrators have said that every year we do letters of recommendation for staff who leave for family or whatever personal reasons. As a result, sometimes when we bring people in, there's savings there, whether it's in insurance or salaries. And so right before we get to the start of the school year, sometimes we've been able to say, or I've been able to present to the school committee and say, we have this amount of money left. I think you can bring back this position or another position. We've had a lot of feedback. I've received, I believe as of today, 6 calls and emails in regard to the budget. The majority of them are over gifted and talented and the art program. So I know the school committee's heard that as well. And so those would be some of the areas that we'll look at once we get a budget passed. That's the first thing. And then once we know what we have for staffing, we can go from there. The performance contract, we're not quite sure. In December, we'll officially know how much we're saving in energy savings. The issue is that last year we cut because of the budget cuts. Last year we had to cut some of the energy savings that we anticipated, and so it's real difficult to say how much of that we will see, because we already cut it. We should have, what we were told after the fact is the money should have been left in there and moved over to our debt service, and then that would pay for the bonds for the guaranteed performance contract. That's how it works. However, we cut the savings, and unfortunately I'm not sure that we'll see a whole lot of additional savings, because I think it's $40,000 we cut from our energy last year. The state budget, some people will tell you that they believe that the state will add additional money into the general purpose aid for schools. I don't believe that to be true, but if it does happen, we would have those additional funds to add to the budget, and there is legislation out there now that would allow towns to, instead of having to go to another referendum, they would be able to utilize those funds. The biggest variable that most people are talking about is the special purpose school, or the day treatment program that we're in the process of putting together for the at central office. What this is doing is this program will bring back a majority of the students that we currently have out of district. We have students who are traveling over 2 hours a day to receive services. We're going to be able to bring those students back to Lisbon, and in the process, we're going to be able to add. We'll be able to add a director, support services. We will be able to add a social worker and a psychological service provider and 5 ed techs. And in the end, it'll be a net savings of $239,000 just by bringing our own students back. So we can add all those positions, which are some of the positions we originally added in the budget. We can add those positions, or hire for those positions, and still have a net savings of $239,000. With the potential of future revenue, which I think is what some people are seeing. But I want to just focus on getting our kids back first, and then we'll worry about how much revenue we could bring in. We're fortunate because we have the facilities to do that, whereas a lot of schools don't have the additional room or the space. And so I will be providing updates on that as we move forward. Unanticipated revenue, you never know what you receive. Main care is one. In years past, we would receive several thousands of dollars. In other years, we would receive just a few thousand. So I don't build the budget on that. And a lot of times what we get in main care and stuff is what we rolled over into the capital reserve. And the undesignated amount and fund balance, you could use additional funds from there. However, with the issues with the referendum, or the multiple referendums last year, the audit and the additional subsidy, we actually need to get through our audit this year, because when they drew the numbers, when they did the audit last year, you have to remember that was in June. We didn't have a budget until December, and as a result, they actually took more money out of the unassigned, undesignated amount, which we were actually building in as revenue. So our software system is all is really a mess, because the numbers you put in, you can't just go in and change your numbers. You have to put in, when you roll it over, you need to put the numbers that you're supposed to have in your budget. We put numbers that were off by about $150,000, and that was the difference in the original amount that went to referendum and the amount that was actually passed. So our numbers are all over the place, and so we're watching that real close. But I don't believe you could use additional funds, but I believe that the auditor would tell you that you're pretty close to that $300,000 mark, which is their threshold, is the minimum that you'd want to have in your undesignated or unassigned account. Again, ultimately this budget, even with all those reductions, yep.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Yeah, when I get done, are you? Yep.
Wonderful about the special education or whatever. Do we provide transportation for these students?
We do, and that's where a big part of the savings. Yep. When you see the question was, do we provide transportation? Yes, because it's cheaper for us to provide the transportation than it is to contract it out. Contracting it out is almost $1.90-something cents a mile. When I first became superintendent, we were spending over $200-something a day to send 3 kids to Gray. So we bought we have various vans. Every time you see one of those school vans, they're saving the town close to $60,000 a year. So that's part of the savings, is that we wouldn't need to be transporting as many of those people. So the first van we bought, actually we paid for it in less than 30 days. So it's just on transportation savings alone. So overall, this budget has an increase locally of $482,058. And I'll be taking questions in a minute, but I just wanted to end by letting everybody know that I believe that the high school, Lisbon High School, on April 21st, we received a letter from NEAS, which I was hoping for, but I wasn't anticipating receiving. And in the letter, as I hope you've already heard, the LHS was awarded continued accreditation and removed from probation. And I believe that Lisbon is the only town that has ever been placed on probation, that has been removed from probation in Maine, and maybe even in further regions, without having a state-funded project to fix whatever their facilities or whatever issues they had. And I know that the schools that are still on the list are are there, and the only other one that was removed just had a huge building project a couple of years ago. So I want to thank everyone who had, all the facilities committee members, the school committee members, everybody in the community who supported all the work that we did, because to be honest, that is probably one of the highest achievements that I think that I've accomplished or been a part of as superintendent in all the years, and I've been here for 14 years. So I wasn't expecting it, but I can tell you, and I'm sure some of the school committee members can tell you, that when we saw that letter, it was a pretty good sigh of relief and a sigh of accomplishment. So everybody in the room in this community should be really proud, because you no longer have to tell people that your school's on probation. They're fully accredited, and as a result of the staff, I mean, the amount of work they put into the last visit it's unbelievable. So I commend them and commend everyone who was a part of that, because it's quite an accomplishment. Thank you. And with that, I'll open it up to questions, comments.
Anybody that has any questions, you can come down.
Mr. Green, my name is Ross Cunningham from Lisbon Falls. I'd like to thank you for the work you've done getting to accreditation and for the creative idea you have on this special school. I think that's fantastic that we're working on ways to bring in revenue, reduce our expenses. I think that's key. I'd like to ask a couple questions, if you don't mind. We voted in favor of the gym and the track. Can you tell me what those payments are on those bonds?
Yes, they're $487,324
And that's combined?
combined.
Okay, thank you. Now, we voted to increase essentially our taxes to pay that bond as a town, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that we're not trying to reduce our budget to cover that. I personally feel like we made an investment in our school. We own that investment, and we should be making the payments on that investment. I don't want to live in a school district where we're continually cutting costs to try to just keep it low, losing teachers when they retire, not replacing people, cutting sports, cutting gate, cutting whatever we need to cut to keep it flatlined. I want you to know that I voted in favor of the gym and the track, and I knew that came with extra taxes, and I'm totally fine with that. So thank you for the efforts, and thank you for your time.
I just want to point out that the special purpose school, the day treatment program, was the result. We have a new director, student services director, John Merrifield, and he actually has developed one of these programs in his former system. So it was his idea. I just got to kind of hold him back because he sees where it can go and where it can be.
Dorothy Fitzgerald. Yes, I voted for the new track and for the new gym. I see that we're having track meets all the time with our new track, which should be bringing in revenue. Is that correct?
It brings in revenue locally, but they don't charge at the gate or anything for
they
the
don't.
meets. So I don't know. I wouldn't be able to tell you how much that it brings to the community, but I do know that there's revenue. I mean, the bus is stopping at the restaurants and stuff. But I mean, the snack shack, I guess.
Yes.
I'd have to get those figures.
Okay, well, I wondered if they were bringing in revenue at the gate. And also, this is the first year in I don't know how many years that Lisbon is graduating from our own school.
I can say that from the track meets, just this past weekend, they made just about $770-ish, which when the boosters who put their time and effort in and other organizations, help out at those events, that's also less fundraising and less taxing on our businesses for donations and things like that. So even though it may not look like there's a lot of revenue at this point, it's also just the starting point. But there's fill-ups of gas and stopping at Food City on the way home to pick up groceries because they're going to go home and cook dinner, things like that, Dunkin' Donuts. So it is helping our local businesses. And I myself would like to see some of the, see if there's any peaks and valleys when it comes to spring and now basketball with the amount of crowds that we've been drawing.
Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Melissa Briglio. I wrote something up tonight. As I'm a senior at Lisbon High School, I will start off by saying that these budget cuts will not affect me personally, but I also have two younger brothers who will be going through the school system. There's potential cuts to the high school art teachers, Ms. Willett and Ms. Fox, to move one of them to PWS full-time or both of them to PWS half-time. With this risk, we will lose half of our art classes. Ms. Fox and Ms. Willett teach pottery 1 through 4, theater arts, art foundations, studio art, AP studio art, and photography. If Ms. Willett leaves LHS, there will be no more studio art. And if Ms. Fox leaves LHS, there will be no more theater arts. Either way, there will be not enough time in the schedule for one art teacher to teach all these classes. This doesn't even include their independent study classes. Personally, I've been in Ms. Fox's independent study class for the past 2 years. This class involves learning different sewing techniques and using those techniques to create costumes for our drama club. So it is something I never thought I could do, and Ms. Fox taught me how. This class inspired me to become a part of the drama club my junior year, and this year I was a costume manager. My two classmates and I made such beautiful and well-crafted costumes that they earned awards at our regional and state competitions, not to mention we won states for the first time in 20 years. We won because of Ms. Fox. If you guys take away Ms. Fox, there's no drama club. This is unfair. The drama club has made such a huge impact on my life and will make impact on other students' lives if you allow it to. Both of our art teachers are greatly valued at Lisbon High School, and that's where they should stay. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hi, my name's Janine Plord, and I actually attended Lisbon High School 20 years ago, the last time they won the Drama Awards. And now I've had the joy of being able to watch my son and my daughter participate in that program. And unfortunately, they won states and were underfunded and couldn't represent themselves regionally in the New Englands. So that kind of hurt my heart. Mrs. Fox has done amazing work. Miss Willett as well, I had her myself. I just want to point out that when I went to school, there was a population in Lisbon, probably, 95,000? And I think the last census was more about, 9,500. And the last census was around 4,500. And a lot of that had to do with the base closing. We had a lot of people from the base. And that's gone now. And we're a wonderful town. And we're so centrally located between the Lewiston Auburn and the Brunswick Topsom and Augusta and Portland. And yet we still have maintain that small town feel. However, if we can't provide for our children the things that build a solid foundation for a community, that's just going to waste away. The arts programs are something that holds children that may not have an academic outlook that is so bright, but it gives them something to look forward to. Music and art really can hold a community together. And that we would just let that go, it's really just giving our town away. We're not going to be here forever. Who's going to hold this up when we're gone? I commend our arts program, and I know that our taxpayers want to support the next generation. I know I do. So I thank you all for your time, and thanks for listening to my emotional rant.
Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Ross Pullen. I'm a junior at Lisbon High School. I used to go to St. Dom's like 3 years ago, and I didn't like going to school. People were mean. I didn't feel like I was reaching my whole full potential. Then I started to go to Lisbon, and when I first wanted to, I hated the idea of going. But now I truly, truly love and enjoy going to school. I like going to school because I'm able to take these art classes that are intense and you have to have a passion for it. It's not just you go in and get a simple art credit. You really have to work for it, like how I take pottery and theater arts and independent costume design. These classes are my favorite because pottery, it's not just making something out of clay. It's making something, a piece of who you are out of the clay. It's teaching you patience and how much time it takes to make something good. It teaches you about fixing mistakes and taking the time to fix them and working hard. And then another one of my favorite classes is theater arts. It's not just teaching you how to become an actor and how you can use acting skills to strengthen your acting, but it teaches you real life tools that you can use in giving a speech or going into a job interview. It teaches you to be a stronger person and really let yourself be heard. And independent costume design is one of my absolute favorites because it's what I want to do when I'm older. And if you take that away from Ms. Fox being able to teach us kids how to sew and make such beautiful costumes, it will probably crush my dreams. Now, the teachers that you want to cut are Ms. Willette and Ms. Fox. They're not just teachers that you can go to for art advice or school advice in general. They're wonderful, honest people who will make school exciting for you, who will make you want to go to school, not just for learning, but for the life experience, to make friends. They will drag you out of your sense of comfort and make you be able to make friends and talk to people. Ms. Willette was my art foundations teacher freshman year. She really taught me what I know about art today: impressionism, surrealism, and she made me actually work hard for something and not just give up during the middle of it. And you can always count on seeing a friendly face with her and always saying hello to you in the hallway. She's a wonderful teacher. Ms. Fox is probably one of the world's greatest teachers and people to me, someone you can count on always. She has really helped me form the person I am today, and she's helped me to learn to love myself for who I am with her teaching theater arts and just being there for drama club. She's made drama club a family, and if you get rid of Miss Fox, we'll lose the person that created our family. And these classes, like I said, are not just fun, simple credits. You really have to work for them. They're serious. Miss Fox, if you make something wrong in pottery, she will crush it and say, "Start over again. I know you can do better." So what I'm trying to say is, please don't cut these art classes. They're needed. It gives students a voice. These very art classes are what form us students into who we are. And if you cut the teachers, you will cut a part of what makes Lisbon, Lisbon. And I have one last thing to say. I challenge anyone in this room to take fabric and turn it into a costume. I challenge anyone in this room to take a lump of clay and turn it into this ceramic piece. And I challenge anyone, haha, nice catch. And I challenge anyone to take a blank piece of paper and turn it into a beautiful work of art. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Michelle Houston, Rabbit Road, Lisbon Falls, Maine. I'm sorry if I smell like a French fry because I just came from the snack shack. I apologize. Just a couple things. I currently work at the high school, and I am an academic support specialist, ed tech, I don't know what you want to call me. But with the elimination of classes, core classes at the high school, that is going to increase the number of kids that I have in my academic support periods. And you're like, what's an academic support period? Basically, it's a reformed study hall. Kids don't just come in and get to sleep and get to do nothing, okay? I am on them. And those kids right back there can attest to it. I already have 32 kids in my classes. What is going to happen? We eliminate these other classes, core classes, for these kids to take. You're going to have to hire more people like me. I would rather have these kids have actual classes than sitting in and being policed by myself. I challenge you, come job shadow me for a day and see. We've got 32 kids assigned to a class that has 25 seats. It's real. And the only one that's getting hurt is the kids. We all pay taxes. We all got reevaluated. My taxes went up, and I voted for the gym and the track, and I'm willing to pay for the gym and the track. I'm willing to pay for everything. I love this town, and I'm always going to be in this town. But you got to give something back to these kids. We do not want people leaving our town. We get great teachers in, we get new teachers in. All of a sudden, it's cut. Or they have to leave. They have to look for another job because they do not feel safe here. But a lot of the teachers that come here, they don't come and just do a job from 7 in the morning till 2 o'clock at night. They throw on a different shirt. They go down to a snack shack. They volunteer. They advise something for free. They touch these kids' lives. Please, I'm begging you, support the children.
Hi, my name is Cosette Holmes. I'm a graduate of Lisbon High School. And I just want to say that I can't pretend that I know every little detail of the budget cuts that you're deciding to make. And I can't pretend that I know every little reason why you need to make them. But if there is any way that you can avoid cutting art teachers, cutting things that are necessary to students' lives, then I think that it's absolutely necessary, and it's absolutely your job to make sure you do that. I just want to reiterate what my friend Ross came up and said, that the teachers really make an impact on our lives. Last year, I took theater arts with Miss Fox, and if I had not taken that class, I wouldn't have the courage to come up and speak to you at all. I probably wouldn't even be here today. She's been there for me even after I've graduated. She puts so much effort into her students. It's amazing. And I also took part of a class with Miss Willette, and she was tough on me a little bit, but she inspired me to do my best. And if it weren't for those two teachers and also my music teacher, Mr. Carsley, I definitely wouldn't be who I am today, and I definitely wouldn't be able to even think about succeeding in life. And so I just want to say that If there's any way that you can avoid that, then I think that it's your duty to.
Counselor Bickford?
My name's Amy Poulin. That was my son, Ross, that you heard earlier. I did not take theater arts. I am not a good public speaker. I do not like confrontation, and I don't like arguing. But what I do love is Miss Fox and Miss Willette. I had no idea when I left the comfort of St. Dominic Academy that I would find the gem that Lisbon High School is. One thing I think is really important to remember is that it's not theater arts students, pottery students, art foundation students, photography students, studio art students, or independent costume design students. But what it is theater arts family, pottery family, art foundations family, photography family, studio art family, and independent costume design family. Here's my poop. Mama Poulin to many. These teachers, and I'm actually stealing some words from Claudia Lemieux from a Facebook post. She said that the teachers were not only her family, but what they taught her was patience, determination, communication, accountability, confidence, kindness, compassion, and I added acceptance because that's what it's done for my son. If you took how much Miss Willette and Miss Fox were actually worth at an hourly rate, cutting them in half, it sounds kind of silly because you couldn't afford them with the amount of hours that they put into that school. If you could see Miss Fox's face after 30 hours of one-act plays, if you could see her after, not showering, eating out of lunch boxes that everyone brought, if you could have seen the look on her face when she knew that she was bringing a championship home that hadn't been there for 20 years, you would have seen the passion in her. If you've not spoken with her, if you've not spoken with Mrs. Willette, if you've not gone to the one-act play, if you've not gone to the school productions, if you've not gone to the art show in that little library, then you are totally missing out, and then you're not making a fair judgment with the cuts that want to be made. So with that said, this is my family. I'm committed to the town of Lisbon as well, and hope that you are into this art program as well.
I've got to take a brief intermission because the camera's running out of juice.
Came to our meeting last week, and that it's been pretty quiet. And a lot of that is because people feel really frustrated and disenfranchised because they felt like they fought really hard and got nowhere last year. And they're back here again, and people are supportive of the taxes. They voted for the programs and for the track and for the gym, and they're so proud of our schools and everything that happens here. And also, the art program is not just a high school issue. The position that's being cut is the art teacher at the middle school, and he has been phenomenal. If he leaves, that leaves emptiness here for Joanne Martin Fisher, who'll have to pick up the slack for the teaching he does here at this facility. And also, as I've mentioned before, it brings the high school teachers, potentially both of them in split time or full time down at the middle school. The middle school art program is robust. We have so many kids who are involved in the art club. They have to split it in half, and they meet every other week. And their art teacher has done a lot to make it a community endeavor, so all of their projects are community-wide, the murals throughout the school. He has volunteered his time to fundraisers with the PAG and with others, so he's done a lot for the community and taught the students that art can be a community endeavor. There's several bodies of research out there that demonstrate that art is not just about being the next Leonardo da Vinci. It's about teaching students to be entrepreneurial, creative, and innovative in their thinking. It builds math scores and helps them be better workers when they leave, critical thinkers. It is a much more complex way of instruction and allows them to be better learners, regardless of whether or not they can actually paint. My son is horrible, but he loves it, and it helps him be a better math student. I know it is. And I've talked to students and parents who are concerned about the SRO position that's being cut. That's a matter of safety and community reassurance, I think, in this time and age where we live. And if students feel comfortable with the police, they see them more as allies and support. And also as a parent, I know I feel better every day knowing that Jeff Picard is at the front door greeting kids as they get off the bus. And that Renee Bernard is working with the other two schools, and they love her, and she does a great job building that community in a safe way. It's more than that. The GATE program does a lot for our students, too. And I know there's only so much we can do with the money and the resources that we have, and I really want to commend the work that the school committee has done to minimize the cut and be innovative in your thinking, because I think that's really important and demonstrates the commitment that you have. But if there's any way that we can save some of these positions and these programs, and again, continue to think outside the box and how we can make it better. As a parent who raises money constantly, in my sleep, I feel like I'm raising money because we are so thin. And I have spent more time volunteering this week than I have been in my office because the needs are so great for our kids. So please, I challenge you all. We need to invest in this community. We need to raise taxes as much as that hurts us. And it's a miserable time because I know the valuations have hurt some people pretty hard. But it's even so, I think we need to do the investment for the long term. So that's my comment. And there are many parents who care. They just don't know what to do and are looking for guidance and are very supportive and thankful for what they have. But these are the areas where they're most concerned. So thank you.
How are you guys doing? Stranger. I'm born and raised Lisbon, Maine, class 2006, so it's been a long time. Still getting used to seeing some old faces. But I'm here on vacation, actually, ironically. I wish I had a solution for a lot of the problems that you guys are dealing with the budgets. It's something that I'm a little familiar with because I still talk with Ms. Willette to this day. It's been 10 years now because she has made that kind of impact on my life. And the reason I'm here right now, instead of not out enjoying the really gorgeous weather you guys are having today, is to kind of talk about why you guys should probably think twice about the budget cuts for them. Because even though we've heard it, 7 people already, 8 people tonight, talk about why it's important, no one really brings up the idea of there's careers in it. I'm a designer and artist. It's what I do. I live in Orlando and LA. Not a lot of people can say they do that, especially at 28 years old. I'm blessed for that, thank you. But it's all due to that. Like, if it wasn't for Miss C or Miss Willette saying, hey, you can do this, you can go out there and do whatever you want, I'd probably still be living in Maine, which I love it, don't get me wrong, but I would have never pursued those dreams. And I think that when making budget cuts and those kind of decisions, especially in the arts, it gets forgotten. You know, it's fun, it's, arts and crafts, cool, it's hard, but do we really need it? Yeah, there's a lot of kids that come through Lisbon that I grew up with or whatever that are amazing at photography, amazing at drawing. My sister's one of them. But if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here right now on vacation. I would be here probably working someplace and not have the opportunity to tell you guys how unbelievably lucky I am to have been able to go through the doors of their classroom and experience that. So I'll cut it short and end my rant, but please do everything you can. That's all I'm asking. All the way from Orlando, Florida, across the country on the West Coast. Please. Have a good night.
My name's Larry Fillmore, and I live in Lisbon. We've sat here and listened to the cuts for the schools and the impact it's going to have on the community. But you know what? I'm not sure we're cutting in the right place. I think we ought to be cutting in the town side of the house and get rid of some of the dead weight we got over there. Instead of impacting on the kids, let's cut in the right places. And I think before we do all the cutting in the school, we ought to think about cutting on the municipal side just as well and just as deep. Because the impact that these people are suffering are the ones that you'll have to go through too. And we need to share equally.
Hi, my name is Hannah Stritch. I graduated last year, and I'm pursuing art at Maine College of Art. I remember something that Miss Willette told me back in sophomore year. I remember someone, maybe it was me, was complaining about history, And she said that every single class matters because all of the knowledge that you're going to receive from math, from history, from science will impact your art. You build this giant toolbox and you go out and you find this information. I find myself searching online for good websites or going through books, reading and trying to find all the knowledge that I can to make a piece that reflects what I know, what makes me. I went through a very bad year, my junior year. I was suffering from depression and I didn't want to go to school. I ended up not going for a little bit of time. I made plans to come in occasionally. And the reason that I did come to school was because Miss Willette and Miss Fox were both supporting me. I remember I had a really bad day and I couldn't stop crying. There was no way I could, and Miss Fox held me for the longest time. I will never forget that day. They are more than teachers. They help deeply. I look up to them very much, and I hope that someday I can help children the way that they do. Thank you.
Laura Campbell, Lisbon. I'm not very good at this and I'm not prepared, but I just want to talk about art for a second. I know everybody has. It really is a family. The kids, if you could go to One Acts, you could see how it doesn't matter who wins this or who wins that. They all congratulate each other. The teachers that we have, Miss Olette, I haven't had a whole lot of experience with, but she's awesome. A couple of my kids have had her. But Miss Fox makes do with so little. We won states on stuff that comes from Goodwill and everything. We beat Yarmouth, who always does an excellent job, but they also have a humongous budget. For our little town to win on nothing, but the skills of the students, that says so much for these teachers, that they can do so much. The other point I want to make is going to Michelle Houston. My son is a senior this year. Kids are required to have, I don't know how many credits to graduate, but he has 3 study halls one day. So thankfully he has senior privs, but we have no electives to offer these students. If you cut art, that's even how many less that, because you're going to have to cut those programs in half. That's going to be even less electives that they have. So what are you going to do with these kids? Like Michelle said, you're going to have to keep hiring more people to fill study halls. We need these. And the thing is, kids are finding that they can do stuff that they didn't even know that they could. Just please consider it and try not to make them cut even more than you already are. Thank you.
Natalie Thompson, Lisbon. I just actually have a question, which is what I think was for. So going from here, if we wanted to re-put in, like, and not cut this art program, like, what would the next steps be and, like, who would be taking them?
Okay, from here, the school committee voted last night to move forward what the numbers that we presented tonight. Public hearing tonight is a chance for the town council to hear concerns. They vote on the final numbers on the 17th. So that is the night that the numbers would be addressed, whether increased, decreased, or what we propose.
Dorothy Fitzgerald. Am I allowed to speak twice? Most of the people that have been up here speaking have been addressing the school department. They should be looking at and addressing the town council. The town council is the one that mandated the cuts in the school budget. Last year, they mandated huge cuts in the school budget, and again this year they mandated cuts in the school budget. There are going to be teachers that will be cut and classes that won't be held because of the cuts. And yet, on the town council side, they have not cut the budget at all. our taxes are going to be going up because of the town council. Anything that anyone wants, yes, we'll go, we'll buy it, we'll buy this, we'll do this. There have been no cuts at all, to my knowledge, in the town side of the budget. Thank you.
Dot, I'm going to rebut you on that. We did not mandate anything with the school board this year, nothing.
That's correct. It was
Nothing.
the 600,000 I was talking about was from last year, which is what we're dealing with.
We
There
did
was no
not,
mandates
we
for
did not
sure.
mandate anything. We left it all to the school board.
And coming from the $1.6 million hole that we were to climb out of this year, the administrative team, the superintendent, and the school committee put forth what is being presented.
I stand corrected. But I'd still like to see some cuts on the town side. We need to go revisit the budget.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
I would like to commend Mr. Green and the school board, and I know these three councils here worked with the school. To make a budget is not an easy thing to do, and they had some tough choices to make, and considering the town as a whole, and there's other people out there that are on fixed incomes, I'm sure they consider that. And the stuff that they did was not an easy thing, and as Council Bickford said, it wasn't a directive from us. They did this on their own, and I commend them for what they did. They come up with that special purpose school. They have very, very good idea as far as I'm concerned, the way that, and I think it could really turn into something big. And I personally think the school has done a good job. The whole school board, Mr. Green, has done a good job this year in what they've done.
I've got something too. I want to commend Tracy, because at the end of last year's budget, in November, when it didn't pass, we had to come to, and me and her sat down, and we ended the stalemate. And I want to commend her very much on helping me do that. And also, the three new ones, I delegated a committee to help the school board, and I delegated the three new councilmen, and they did a fantastic job, and I'm very proud. And like I said, the school, it's not hard, it's not an easy job to sit here and take things away from people. But last year, we had and I'm not saying about the school budget, but we found out last year how hard that we had cut into things when people weren't getting their roads plowed on a mild winter, because equipment was breaking down, and we hadn't foreseen that. And things have got to change. And I mean, we have got road construction that is coming up. State, millions of dollars of roads. And we have to have a percentage of that to do that. So we have to vote for that. We have to get the money for that. When, it's nothing, we won't get this maybe for another 20 years. So we got to do this. The state is going to do the roads. And we have to have and we do want to put some more money in. We want to go to bond for hot topping and maintaining some of the roads in this town that have been neglected for years and years and years. It's one of these things, and whether they did it or not, I'm very happy that for this school budget right now, because they seem to be working with the town on the whole package, not just part of it, the whole package. And I'm very happy about that. I'm going to be going out of council this year, and I think I'm going to be going out on a high note as far as how everything has worked very well with this council and the school board. So I wanted the people to know that. It's not over, but we're going to be spending, we're going to have to spend some more money, because it's just what it is. I mean, the town side is cut I've been here 6 years. They were cutting 2 years before that. And when you start cutting a bone, you ruin your structure. So we've cut the fat. I mean, I've watched the people at the town office. They're double and tripling teaming. I mean, they're all multi-purposing. And it's been, I've watched it grow and grow and grow on a multi-purpose all 6 years. And this year, it's unbelievable. But I want to commend everybody, school board, town council, even the planning board, for what they're doing. I mean, it's fantastic. Everybody is completely busy and really trying to bring this town forward. So, we're not, as you can see, basically, we're not fighting anymore. We're working together. So, you know, we did not mandate like we did last year. We let the school board do what they were elected to do, and they did a good job, very good job. So, that's all I've got to say. I hope it's enough. Anybody else?
Can I say something?
You sure can.
Okay. I want to say that last year hurt, and it hurt really bad. And because of that, it's going to take us some time to recuperate. So what I ask is that everybody have patience with us to be able to, not only on the town side and the school side, we have to be able to get to where we should have been. And again, it's going to take time, it's going to take money, it's going to take a lot of energy. I understand where everybody's coming from because I'm sure most of you know I have children in the school system, and I'm sure most of you know who my children are. And my children are going to be affected by these cuts as well. I have to worry about when my kids go to school that there may not be an SRO officer in the school building. My children also are art students, and not to brag or anything, I find it very exceptional. But
I think you're bragging.
I may be just a little bit. But I don't want to have to see the kids have to suffer and not be able to have the tools that they need to be productive adults. So my question, and I'm not sure who can answer, probably Mr. Green. We have credit requirements, and we are already offering very little options to fulfill those credit requirements. So how are we going to make up for the classes that the kids could potentially be losing so that way they can graduate with the required credits?
You'd have to look, by adding the academic support specialist, we were able to offer a number of different electives because we had the classroom teachers teaching, or actually covering study halls for several years. Mm-hmm. As far as knowing that, Mr. Gannon would be the one that would be able to tell you what the credits are and how that would impact the electives. And how would we make that up? You're right, it's going to take a couple of years to get there. Like I said, our enrollment should go up in the next year or two. We should see some increase in state subsidy, and then we can rebuild as we've done. 2009, we were sitting in the same position. We had 1.2 million, I believe, in cuts. So he would, to answer your question, I would want to have Mr. Gannon because he's the expert on the high school schedule and the amount of credits, and but it will impact their ability. We'd have more academic support, study halls that we'd have to place kids in, so it would impact their ability to take those classes. And as for making them up, they'd still be able to graduate, but they would have less opportunities to take electives and expand themselves.
Right, but I guess I would rather see children being able to thrive and learn other opportunities instead of sitting in a study hall. I mean, I haven't been out of school that long, but I was offered home ec, I was offered wood shop, I was offered many of those types of opportunities, foreign languages, arts, theater, and I look at what my kids have to take, and you know, I was pretty excited to sit down and be able to work with them on what their next years were going to consist of as far as a school schedule, and the opportunities just aren't there. So I just want to make sure that when we're cutting things, that we're looking at the future instead of just looking at now. I'm a proactive instead of a reactive type person. So not saying that what you guys are cutting is a bad thing, because I completely understand where you guys are coming from. I just want to make sure that future-wise, we're not doing more harm than good.
I think with any type of cuts, you do more harm than good. That's just the nature of the beast. The school committee doesn't have the luxury of looking at just elementary school, just middle school, and just high school. We are the umbrella that is over all of that. And that's why a lot of the times the discussions happen with the administrators on what is happening in their schools. And it comes down to what will it look like? And nothing's ideal. It hasn't been ideal since the large cut. We were just clawing back to being able to give extra electives and things like that that would pique children's interest, which is something that you need to catch them with. What we have done over the years for expanding opportunities is we now have the options to go, at least at the high school level, to another region, Region 10, for different programmings that LRTC doesn't have, and virtual high school, which is kind of an independent type of electives, which isn't ideal for all students. And we understand that. It's not an easy decision, cutting what we've had to do. It may be of interest for people who weren't at the meeting last night. My degree is an art degree. I graduated as an art student from USM. So to talk about cuts is not easy. I, too, had at the time was Miss Francine, not Miss Willette. But she piqued that interest for me. So to be able to do these types of cuts is not ideal, absolutely not ideal. But like Dr. Green said earlier, is through resignations, which we had one last night, someone's moving out of state. When you hire somebody else, it sometimes is at a different salary, different benefits package. Sometimes you are able to not disrupt a program because you'll find enough in those transitions during that time to bring somebody back and back into a program. So there are, that's the glimmer of hope. That's from all the years that I've been here. I've been here now 10 years on the school committee. We at least always have been able to, it hasn't been numerous positions, but I think that I can think of a handful of years that we were able to bring back one, sometimes two, on those transitions and different ideas. So, again, it's not ideal, but like I stated before, we were clawing out of a $1.6 million hole.
Last question I have. How are we going to make up for the SRO position? Is one SRO going to float between all three schools, or is it just going to be one SRO at one school?
I've exchanged emails with the chief of police, and the administrative team has looked at what it would look like. Would it be the position would partially focus on education down here, and then the remainder of the day would be dealing with incidents at all three schools or whichever. But I wanted to wait until after the public hearing, and even next Tuesday, to really look at what that's going to look like. We talked about the SROs before, and the community's been pretty supportive. We talked about the art program years ago, and the community's been supportive. The nurses supportive. So I wanted to wait until I knew if it was going to be definite or not. But we'd have to look at it, and it wouldn't be what you see it as now. But there's a lot of importance with having the educational piece down here at the elementary. I know when I talk to the administration here, that's a big piece for them. And then the high school, middle school are dealing with, issues, harassment, bullying online. So is it more than, one person can handle? Probably. But we're not going to be able to break it up into like a 1.5 or anything like that. It's like everything else. I mean, I have a maintenance director or a director of facilities transportation that's trying to be a maintenance director, or doing the maintenance, and he can't be in two places at once. And so things are going to give. You talk about plowing. having issues with that. Next year when we're sitting down, everything that you see of this budget, as high as the increase is the highest increase as superintendent I've ever presented to this community. There are going to be issues. It may look good on paper right now, but there are going to be issues, and things are going to not work. We've tried it with the nurses. We went to 2 nurses. We had one going between 2 buildings. I was given shots, insulin shots at lunchtime. There's certain things that just don't work, but we have to do what we have to do. And when somebody leaves a position, it's a lot easier through attrition to not fill it, and that's kind of what we're dealing with right now.
I just wanted to take a moment to thank everybody who's come up tonight and expressed their opinion one way or another. Actually, it's pretty impressive to see all the young folks come up and advocate so much for their teachers. It's a good feeling. I'm sure the teachers already know that these kids rely so much on you and what you do, and that's not lost on us. We get it. I can't really say much more than what Roger has already said, which is we've worked hard, and the school committee has done a fantastic job. We really have all worked together this year. It's been a great thing to see. It's something you want to see every year, but it doesn't make it any easier. And even though we're all working together, still tough decisions have to be made. And that's not a way to say but, because I think we all know how that works. Everything's great, but I think we've all done a very good job to try to find the places where we can have the least impact, realizing that sometimes even when we think it's going to be the least impact, it gets a lot of folks out to say, hey, that's having a huge impact on my community, especially the arts programs. So I know we're all going to go back and talk, and we're not going to pretend that we can fix it all, but we're certainly going to try to talk about it, take everything that you said here tonight under advisement when we're going back and talking about these final numbers. I think Roger is really committed to making sure that we leave no stone unturned this year, and that we're doing everything that we can. And so we'll do that. But thank you all for coming out tonight.
Mr. Green, was you going to give your capital improvement plan?
So do you want to officially open a public hearing for that?
You want me to close the first one?
Yes, please.
Then I'll close the first one on the school budget and open the public hearing for the capital improvement plan.
Just, we have on the capital plan, this is the first time we've had to have a public hearing for our capital plan. We've presented it and discussed it multiple times. The school committee adopted it in April. One change based on the recommendation from members of the facilities committee and members of the town council was to add the spreadsheet, which is the last page in the handout that you received this evening. And our capital plan includes all of our known priorities and the amount of work completed for all the different aspects of our infrastructure through the school department. And so a lot of the capital plan is supposed to be anything over $25,000. So outside of vehicles, and actually we haven't purchased, outside of buses, we haven't purchased any vehicles that are over $25,000. So our spreadsheet is much smaller than that of the towns. The biggest expense that you'll see is at the top, and that is at the high school, and that is developing or converting the old gymnasium into a community performing arts center, which in a number of years ago when we did the estimates on the gymnasium, that particular area was estimated at under $500,000 or $490,000. What I shared with the school committee last night is when we did the front of the high school, the main entrance and the side-in, we combined the lease purchases for the portables that used to be outside and a bond that came off the books for the paving, and we combined those two together, and so we paid for the renovations, adding the handicap accessible main entrance and all the side-in windows and on the front of the building. We were able to do all that work without asking for any additional funds. And so when that particular bond expires, and I want to say it's in 5 or 6 years or so, the community, we're going to plug away at it because we need to build a classroom in there for the music department. However, long term, that would be our goal, is that when that other bond comes off the books, you could then go out to referendum, and without adding any new money, you could use existing money and pay for the renovations of the Performing Arts Center, which would put in the stadium seating, the acoustics, all that other stuff. So we're hoping to plug away at it so that number's lower, but I just wanted to point that out. Those are the major changes. This plan includes work for the central office, which includes siding and renovations, the community school, the classroom carpets. We are taking some of those out. Those are difficult to keep clean. Security cameras in all the buildings, community school, middle school, high school. The heating units and windows at the middle school. High school includes security cameras, refurbish the bathrooms, Performing Arts Center, which I already talked about, and also the work we've done with the emergency shelter, talking with the safety committee, making the new gymnasium potentially a safety shelter, and creating a life cycle preventive maintenance plan for the gym floor and the track, the driveways, all those new items are part of our infrastructure that require maintenance and upkeep every so many years. We have needs for the grounds, the vehicles, and technology. Again, we do have some replacements for the first time in the last couple of years. We do have 2 replacement buses in this particular budget. And just a reminder that some people have talked about refurbishing those buses. It's actually cheaper for us to buy brand new because we receive state subsidy. We receive the amount of state subsidy back. So the cost is much less as a result. And so those buses have been approved and are in this budget, and that will allow us to maintain the fleet because we're spending close to anywhere between $8,000 and $10,000 a month in maintenance on some of our buses. We have buses that are almost 20 years old right now that we're running, so we're trying to take some of those off the road. Wireless networks and examining our future technology needs. In the NEASC report, that is one area that they did identify as a need, and that is to maintain and upgrade and incorporate additional technology into our schools. And that's our capital plan in a nutshell, but I can answer questions or go into more details if needed.
Any questions on the capital plan?
And one important thing is our plan isn't set so that like next year we're going to add a whole money to the. It's most of our projects will be paid for out of the local budget and capital reserve and lease purchase agreements that will roll over.
Hi, James DeRoche. When you replace buses and vehicles, what do you do with the old ones?
We usually sell them, put them out in front of the high school and sell them. They give us a trade-in. It's not as nice as the car that's out there right now, but we used to trade them in, but they wouldn't give us very much money, and you'd be surprised we can get $1,000 to $3,000 for an old bus because somebody turns it into hunting camp or something.
I mean, do you take that money and roll it back into your budget?
We roll that money back. That pays off the debt on the bus. Yep. Yeah, all of our vehicles, anything we sell that goes. That's one of the things we take into account. And some of them we actually use for parts. If you go down to the garage now, you'll notice that there's 2 buses down there, and they're bought in '99, and we've taken seats, hoods, heaters off of that. They're starting to look pretty bad, but it saved quite a bit of money by being able to go down there and take those parts off those buses. But we had so many of them because we didn't buy any for so many years, and then the next thing you know, the school department, you had to purchase 6 buses at the time, and now all those buses are close to 20 years old. So instead of getting into that cycle where we have to buy 6, if you were to buy one new one a year, you keep the fleet up because we run over 10 buses. So it takes some time.
Anybody else? Ben?
No, I don't want a bus. I'd just like to say the fact that I appreciate that this is on the agenda as a public hearing item. It's been one of my pieces, being the new person on the council, one of 3, I should say, looking at capital improvement town-wide. It's one basket of goods. in that regard. It's one of the things that we've talked about as a council here that has got a lot of traction with current chair. Roger is finding seed money on the town side to be able to address it, and looking at that so that it is worth the paper that it's printed on and not viewed as a Christmas list. Like to see it actually planning and investing in infrastructure. And it is something that we take very seriously. I take very seriously. I reference a vandalism discussion that happened at the high school of recent. The fact that as soon as I was aware of it, I was on contact with school committee chair at that point in time, because it's a brand new school. There's pride here. The school students are here. The fact is we need to maintain these assets because they are not something that's taken lightly. It took us 30 years to get the new gym. It needs to last much more than any one budget cycle. Thank you.
Anybody else? Then I'd like to close this public hearing for the capital improvement plan.
Next item is an order to adjourn. Order passed, 7-0. Stand adjourned.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming.